Hello, I'm the Smoking Cheddar, but you probably already knew that. So, we're back with another episode in unit builds, and this week we're looking at a Liberty helicopter build. And this is going to be for field play, for solo manipulation. So, what's the scenario? You need a fast attack, heavy hitting unit damage build, which is going to allow you to leave the base and hunt down units that are moving in an AG. Perhaps you can sneak out of your base and sneak up behind an AG that's doing a forced march, or perhaps moving from one location to another. You're going to want to hit hard, single shots, and you're going to want to make sure that that thing is going to absolutely wipe out your opponent. I give you the Piranha. And much like the Piranha, this thing's going to have many teeth, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to move quickly, and then it's going to withdraw. So as always, guys, make sure your headphones are in and your partner is busy. Make sure you have yourself a snack and or drink, because it is getting to summertime out there. Today I have myself a can of White Monster. Yes, I am one of those guys. Don't hate me for it. And we'll be looking at the tech. We'll be looking at the modern tech. We'll be looking at the components and parts of the helicopter. We'll be looking at the officers and the trained skills, and then as always we will be going into a summary for the helicopter. But first, let's go and have a look at what we're actually using in terms of unit. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the helicopter main stat, and it says as for all helicopters, we've got penetration and all terrain. Unrestricted by terrain, helicopters can bypass obstacles on the battlefield. We already know this, and this is fantastic. Penetration is capable of penetrating armor, so this is going to be extremely good for sneaking up on any unit in the battlefield. If you can catch it napping, you can probably kill it with this build. So what do we get as a camp bonus? Well, it's Liberty, so naturally we get the velocity boost. Now, unlike the scout build, which we done at the start of this series, where we used the light tanks maneuverability and the velocity boost and really stepped it up with the ability to move that speed as high as possible. We are going to do a little bit of that with this helicopter, but we're not going to do a lot of it, because with the helicopter you don't really need to. The extra speed you do need to catch units, but you are not subject to terrain. You can just fly straight to the target, and providing there's space for you to touch down nearby, that's how you do it. So that's kind of why we're going to use the Liberty helicopter. It's slightly faster than the others, and it gives us a good balance of firepower, and it gives us a good balance of HP as well. So if we just have a look at the unit really quick, we'll look at it at Silver 1 standard, as always, is 8.1, and you're seeing a standard helicopter is going to come in at 1.36 million at 599 HP. We have up to a 316mm of pen rating and a 56k speed. We don't really need to worry too much about a sloped armor rating, but what we will do is we will compare this briefly to the sloped armor on the Liberty MBT, for example, at the same level. So at the same level, we have a 249 sloped armor versus a 316 penetration depth. So you are going to be able to pen very easily, and up against the big boy, again, you're going to be able to pen the armor on the most armored MBT out there. Now obviously if this thing turns its barrel towards you, you are going to have a bad time, because it's got just as much firepower, but it is going to absolutely crush you most of the time. I say most of the time. I'm hoping this build will be a counter to the MBT out in the field. So 56 kilometers, what can we chase down? Well, we know we can chase down a Liberty MBT, but only just, and that is a fast MBT. At the Martyr MBT, we've got nearly 10 kilometers an hour on it, so we're going to chase that down, no problems. And we're going to have the same speed advantage in terms of the Vanguard MBT. So we're going to be able to sneak up and attack MBTs from behind. This is not just for hitting MBTs, guys. You can use this to hit pretty much anything, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So first of all, we are going to look at the advanced tech tree. As always, we're going to look at the pictured text first. And yes, I know I have covered the pictured text for the tank tree in the advanced tree about 100 times now since I started doing these videos. So you probably know what's going to happen here. So I wouldn't blame you if you skipped ahead. However, if you are new here, because I pick viewers up all the time, this one you might want to sit for. So obviously we're getting the modern fire control system, which gives us an increase in the tank's helicopter's normal attack critical strike rate by 5%. So we get a 5% critical strike rate as a base critical strike rate, and the critical strike damage is amped up by 50%, which is pretty good, let's be fair. And of course, because we are in a helicopter, we are getting increased firepower by 5% for 4 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. We're getting up to 15% additional firepower. So this should be a good indication as to where we're going. We've got critical strike and we've got firepower. Now, with these builds, we're going to be limited to what we can and cannot do, so we need to think quite clearly about what our goal is with the helicopter. And as we've already said, our goal is to hunt down pretty much anything on the battlefield and destroy it. So we might not need to worry about the crit too much, but the firepower we're definitely going to be wanting to use. So here we have damage intensity and we have damage resistance bonuses. Obviously these have got to be maxed out in order for you to get to the fire control systems, but this is exceptionally good if you're going for a field build. So we have firing accuracy, we have tank pen, and we have load time reduction. All of these are extremely useful to us as we're going to be out in the field. We have an HP bonus here, which is going to be useful. We have damage resistance bonuses against tanks and damage resistance bonuses against artillery. Now, the one unit type you're probably not going to want to engage is the infantry, so probably only it's not worth maxing this one out for the build unless you want to complete the tree. Damage intensity versus tanks, damage intensity versus artillery. This is going to be really important that you get both of these maxed out. HP will be nice, but is ultimately not necessary. The firepower, however, will be necessary. We will need to max this one out. These advanced builds, we are only looking at the halfway point on the modern tree. We're not looking at the full thing. So at the halfway point, we have the unmanned turrets. Whenever a tank hunter or helicopter troop penetrates enemy armor, it gains 5% firepower bonus and reduces the target speed by 35% for 5 seconds. So this is going to be extremely handy, and if we wanted to, we could do a speed-based build. So if you think back to the scout build I've done, you could effectively take those officers and stick them in this helicopter with that exact build, and this would be very powerful. You're effectively building a scout helicopter. But we're going to change the officers for this build as we're going to utilize slightly different mechanics in order to achieve our goal. But this is very helpful to us. It gives us a slow on the enemy, and it gives us a firepower bonus, which is going to be incredibly dangerous. We have resistance versus artillery and resistance versus tanks. We would like these maxed out preferably. Resistance versus infantry, again, we're not really looking to engage infantry, so that's not the point of this build, so we probably just want this one on the bare minimum. HP is nice, but ultimately we're not looking to get shot at, so we don't need it. Firepower, we will need this. Base HP, well, as you're here, may as well pick it up. We have penetration damage and blast mitigation bonuses. Now, at some point you're going to get hit by an artillery round. This doesn't really particularly affect you in terms of playing as a helicopter. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but if you have other tanks, it is going to be useful to pick up. And of course, HP, which we might want to get to a minimum, and firepower, which we will want as a maximum. So that's the text. Let's have a look at the parts and see if there's anything else we can take with us. So as we can see, the rocket pods, we've only got one option, which is firepower, and this does give us a pen depth bonus. Exterior, again, we only have one option, which is firing accuracy and firepower, which is nice. Engine, yet again, this does come with troop speed, which is very nice, and of course, it being camp specific, you're going to get bonuses. And on to maintenance and supplies. Now, I do go through this sometimes because not all components on all of the tanks are the same, or all the helicopters, or all the artillery pieces. So if you remember in the penetrator build we looked at for the Martyr MBT, we got a penetration or a firing accuracy barrel. We had two to choose from. But also it's worth mentioning that we're looking at what we should have in the maintenance supplies. Now, for this build we are going to be looking at firepower in one slot, and depending on how long your helicopter survives for, the second slot you might want HP, or you might want to take extra firepower. My recommendation would be to take double firepower for this. We're not looking for your units to get shot. That's not the goal of this. The goal is to sneak up behind the enemy target and unleash hell, and then get out of dodge as quickly as you can. So we are going to be looking for the double firepower buff sitting right here.
I can't stand people who slow me down.
Okay, so for our first officer, we're actually going with Valkyrie. Now, I have heard people, and I shan't name them, in recent months say that Valkyrie's pretty much done with, you can't use her anymore. That's not the case. I'm afraid I will completely disagree with you there. As always, she is your first choice for any helicopter build because she is just a fantastic officer. So for this section, as always, we're going to go through the skills in her officer skill tree. We're going to go through the train skills, and then we'll go through the aid, and then we will go on to the summary and explain everything. So first off, we have damage intensity bonuses, and we have a coefficiency bonus of up to 1500. We're not really looking to pop off a coefficiency attack, but if we do, we are getting a 15% coefficiency bonus, a 15% damage intensity buff on top of a 1500 coefficiency. We're not really interested in the actual damage itself, we are interested in the intensity, and this is where the build is going to start coming to light. So we do have a firepower increase, and as you remember from the previous section, we were looking at the general parts in slot 4, and I recommended having additional firepower. Here we get a 20% firepower buff, and we get a 5% speed power bonus, which is going to play into the Liberty helicopter's already extra speed, so we're going to get a little bit more speed out of it, which is going to be nice. We get the precision strike, which gives us a chance to break the target's defense and reducing damage resistance. This is why she's so good, because we get a damage resistance reduction on the target of up to 20%. Now, that's pretty powerful because if they are having 20% less damage resistance and you are getting an increase in your damage intensity, then that gap is going to increase even further and you're going to be able to subsequently deal more damage, which is why we want her for this build. And of course, naturally, we have the damage intensity buff of 15%. So on to the awakened skill. Whenever this officer's tank or helicopter troop attack an enemy ground force troop, the attack has a 40% chance to break the target's defense for 4 seconds, triggering once every 2 seconds. If the target is already affected by the defense break, we get a bonus of 200 skill damage on the target. Very, very nice. Now for the trained skills. We have a damage intensity, heavy barrage coming in from Iron Cavalier of 20%. As always, you don't have to use specifically Iron Cavalier. Any 20% damage intensity bonus or as much as you can muster will suffice. For the special, we've gone for a load time reduction because we want to pop off that special skill and the awakened skill more often. Also, it plays in very nicely to intensity and critical strike builds because you're firing more lead at your opponent. It's a case of damage with volume of fire rather than accuracy like artillery. So let's have a look at the aid. And yes, it's everyone's new favourite officer. We're going with Margarita. Why are we choosing Margarita, say, over Madame Havoc? I'm glad you asked, because that's quite an important question. The first reason is because specifically this awakened skill here is a chance on attack, and we are using damage intensity and a load time reduction. We're also stacking firepower, so with these in mind we're going to have a lot of shots being fired off, and because we are relying on unit damage, a unit debuff which is applied on hit is going to be incredibly powerful. So the flashbang shock the target for 1 second, or the tear gas which will delay the hostile target's skill attack, and that's a 75% chance of deploying on attack. You know the helicopters fire quickly, so we can utilize this with the movement speed and the rapid attacks that come out of that helicopter absolutely perfectly. We're already getting debuffs placed on the target using Valkyrie, so let's just layer those debuffs up. Let's just make it a difficult unit to escape from. And you've got to remember, whenever we're hitting an opponent, because we're at the halfway point in the modern tech tree, they are already slowed by a considerable speed. So that is also worth remembering, that we're stacking that in. And we have a damage intensity skill right here, right next to it, which is absolutely perfect. We have a dodge rate, which is going to give us a little bit of survivability. This is why I said I wasn't sure if you might want to go HP and firepower for the 2 slots, but double firepower is what I recommend still. We have a damage intensity and firepower bonus here, so again we've got more damage intensity. And we have a damage coefficient, which is exceptionally high, but we're not really looking to utilize this. However, if we are in an extended fight, we do get a kill shot of 75%. Okay, so on to the trained skills. The first skill we're looking at is Cold-Hearted, a 30% normal attack boost. So as always, we don't necessarily need this specific normal attack boost, but 30%, if you're not using Svalin for any reason at all, this is going to be absolutely perfect for you, because obviously normal attack boost is effectively damage intensity for the regular attacks, which is why the buff is so high. Additional damage modifier applied to ground or air force troops normal attacks. This stat is affected by normal attack boost and normal attack resilience of the attacking defending troop. So it applies exactly the same way as intensity does, except intensity does both skill and normal attack, but as we're looking specifically to capitalize from the normal attacks in this build, this is a very good option. Of course, you can just use a regular intensity one if you have it laying around. And for the last trained skill, we have damage intensity and damage resistance bonus, explosive expression from our madman and mustachio painter from the Vanguard team, who yes, we know who he's not supposed to be, Maestro, but he seems to bear a lot of resemblances in more than one way to a very famous man from the 1930s. I do quite like him actually as a character in the game. I think he's quite funny. That aside, that's a personal note. Yeah, we've got a damage intensity of 10%, a damage resistance of 10%, but we're really keen on that damage intensity bonus, but the damage resistance is a little bit nicer. So let's head over to the summary and conclusion. So what is it we're using this for? To quickly review what we did at the beginning, we're using this to exit the base, go anywhere on the map and hunt down units that are on the move that we can snipe from behind or from the side, or we can flank in battle. We are using this out in the field to absolutely exterminate our enemies relentlessly, mercilessly. We're going to ignore terrain, we're going to ignore water, we are going to fly across the map, and we are going to hurt you. So, how does this build work? Well, it works by leveraging a lot of firepower for the normal attacks. So firepower does a couple of things, as we know. It increases the accuracy, it increases the normal attack damage, and it also increases your normal attack rate of fire. It also increases the skill damage as well, but we're not really interested in the skill damage for this build too much. The skill damage is quite high for this build, but it's not that important. So we've got a lot of firepower. We've got the firepower parts in slot 4 on the helicopter. We've got one trained in firepower or damage intensity in the trained in section for the officers, and the officers work together to effectively debuff the enemy target, whether it is movement speed from the tech tree, whether it is critical strike damage, which isn't really a debuff but it is nice when it goes off. We're looking at being able to apply damage resistance debuffs to the target, and we're looking at being able to stun the target for 1 second and reduce the skill load time for 1 second. And we've absolutely stacked out the damage intensity. Why have we stacked out damage intensity? Well, that's so when this one shot comes out of the helicopter and it hits the enemy target, it is going to massively overwhelm the damage resistance, and we're going to see a huge increase in unit damage out in the field. This is literally so you can roll up on the enemy target, you can fire off 1 or 2 shots, and you're going to absolutely wreck them. We've got a good amount of penetration rating, so we can even snipe out MBTs that aren't paying attention, that might be on the move. We've got a 5% movement speed on the fastest helicopter, so we're going to be able to chase down enemy MBTs, and they ain't going to be able to do anything about it. And that includes the Liberty MBT, unless they have gone for a movement speed build on that. The only thing that's going to be faster than this on the battlefield, other than a bomber, is going to in fact be the light tank. But objectively, this is actually quicker because you are not obstructed by territory, which is why this is so deadly. Even if the enemy turn round to try and fight you, you can simply hop over a wall, an impassable bit of terrain like a mountain or a village, or a river, an ocean, as long as there's land on the other side for the helicopter to fly in a direct line to get to. Very, very handy. So we've got the debuffs from movement speed from the tech tree, we've got the debuffs from both officers. Once they're awakened, we get we're getting a lot of damage intensity. As I said, we're just leaving the base, we're hunting down units, and then the unit does the rest of the work for us. Now, if you do get in a prolonged combat, this thing's going to be fairly squishy. It doesn't have a lot of armor, it has a mid-range amount of HP, it is going to be fairly squishy, it's got no shield, but if you keep it at the back of the pack, right behind the MBTs, and the MBTs are soaking up the brunt of the damage, this thing's going to fire over the top of them. It's going to absolutely waste anything in front of it. It's going to be absolutely lethal in a straight up AG, but this is predominantly going to be needing you, the player, to micromanage this while your MBTs are in AGs, while your artillery are in AGs, and while maybe your infantry or light tank or super heavies are also in AGs. You can micromanage this helicopter, and it is going to ruin someone's day, trust me on that one. So that's all I wanted to show you guys today. I wanted to show you this wonderful build I dreamt up last week, but I put off doing it because I done the random video instead. And I'm sure Creed is playing right now somewhere, for those of you invested in social media. Don't forget to drink your drink. It's hot out there today, guys. Caffeinate, hydrate, and stretch your legs, please. Stretch your legs. I've been the Smoking Cheddar, and you've been very patient. Thank you very much for watching. As always, a link to the Discord will be in the description box down below. You're more than welcome to come and join us. We did have someone join us from last week's video, and they didn't follow the rules, and now we just snigger at them and point and laugh from the general chat at people who didn't read the rules when they entered. It's not difficult, guys. I literally put it in the first line when you enter the server. Remember to read things. That's all I'm doing to you, is reading things to you. Make your life a little bit easier. I'm only asking you to read one sentence if you join the Discord. Also, if you do join the Discord, please remember, be an adult. We will bully you. And you can bully us. You can say whatever the hell you like within certain degrees of reason. But yeah,